So Danny, I just wanted to run through that, and maybe you would like to talk about your experience with pranayama, with all your many hours in India, and how you see the link to not only breathology, but maybe more so being an instructor, because you have also your own school of breathing, so to speak, or at least your own direction of breathing. And if you could tie that into your experience in pranayama and link that into how this can be applied to everyone here today, and what maybe are the main focus points to be aware of, that would be
Yeah.
very interesting.
It's been fascinating, my personal journey, just because it's tied up into so many different aspects of life. And I think it started, when I first was introduced to running, and I really wanted to know like how, because your air is your engine, and I wanted to be peak performing. So how am I supposed to breathe when I'm running? And then I went and started having like a little bit of anxiety. And then somebody was like, oh, you need to breathe into this paper bag. And I'm like, what? That doesn't make sense. So I like all these things. And then yoga had very intricate and interesting breathing techniques. And then I got into free diving, and all of these different facets of my life have always led me back to the breath. And I remember when I first did a breath work workshop, which was like very controlled hyperventilating, like Wim Hof kind of style, and all these different effects. And I actually had a student who recommended me your book, the Breatheology book. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? So I've done a lot of studying and a lot of deep work and investigation into anything I can get my hands and brain on that would tell me what are the benefits of breathing, what's the science of breathing, what's the philosophy behind it. And as an instructor, I have, I teach classes on breathing now, on pranayama and, breathwork classes. And when I get a student who's completely new and they're not really sure what avenue to go down, because there are many, even though some of them are very hidden and obscure and not easy to get to, I always recommend them the Breatheology book. And I say, like, just go down this avenue first, because it's one of the most comprehensive beginner ways to be introduced to the science of breath, which is really important. And then the different techniques that are going to help you, figure out like, oh, let me experiment with this. Let me play with where I'm breathing with my diaphragm, where I'm breathing with my intercostals. And the breath holding is something, because I was a free diver, I'm just like insanely passionate about. In pranayama, traditional ancient pranayama, the main goal, if you're going down the journey, is kumbhaka, and that is where you're retaining or suspending the breath. And there's a couple different variations of kumbhaka, but the one that when you get to, like I would say the doorway, right? So pranayama is this doorway that leads you to, nirvana, higher consciousness, meditation, whatever word you want to put to it. But the highest kumbhaka is the one where it's not you're holding it in or you're holding it out. It's you're holding the breath because you have so much prana, you have so much energy, so much life force that you don't even have to think about breathing anymore. You don't even need to breathe. So that is that esoteric philosophical type of kumbhak where you just can hold your breath and can stay alive and be in a deep state of meditation. So when I try to introduce breath holding to my students, usually it's 20 seconds, 30 seconds that they get through, and then they go into this panic kind of mode. And actually, Bart, when you're talking about holding your breath for Uddiyana Bandha, a lot of times what will happen is you get a blood shift when you're in the parasympathetic response. So you're trying to be super calm, and when you're super calm, you go into rest and digest. So that means that all that blood is going to your belly. But as soon as you start to hold the breath, a lot of people kind of unintuitively shift into that sympathetic response, which means the blood is now shifting out of the belly, which can make it a little more tense, a little more dry in there, and probably a little more sensitive and painful. So, and I know that Stiggs stresses this as well, like the most important thing that you can do when you're doing your breath holding is relax. And that's why the visualizations and all of the other preparatory exercises are so important, because the key to holding your breath is the mental realm of just, oh, this is not as horrible as it may seem. We actually had a woman named Hella in our breatheology certification who she had like this amazing way of I can't remember how you articulated it, Stig, but you said that she could like kind of control or smooth out her diaphragmatic contractions, which was something I wasn't really too experienced with, because I was always just trying to control them and slowing them down, or to try to make them like the intervals to be separated. But she had this beautiful way of kind of like smoothing out that contraction of the actual diaphragmatic muscle to where, I mean, I don't remember how long she held her breath, but I think she got to 5 minutes or something like that. And it's a beautiful, it's just such a beautiful art of the mind, the body, and everything. So I would definitely say like work on the relaxation more than anything else. And then in pranayama, we not only get into the way that we're controlling the mind, but you can control your digestion, you can control your heart rate, you can even get into where you tap deeper into that parasympathetic response, and even like the autonomic nervous system, to where you can control other organs, you can, you know, release certain hormones and all of this. And not to say that I've gotten to all those amazing parts, but I've met people who have, and it's fascinating. And sometimes it seems like it's science fiction, but like breatheology is the doorway. Like this will get you in to kind of say like, oh wow, all these things that maybe seem very far-fetched and not that possible are attainable, and people are doing it. Yeah.